Welcome to Reflection. This is a show that I've been meaning to do for the longest time, and it's finally here because I can no longer prolong the sign and the call that I've been giving to do this, and I'll get to that. However, I want to first say that I am, as much as I'm excited about the show, I'm also really nervous, and that's just the same emotion depending on from which perspective you look at this emotion at. And it's interesting because this process has brought me so much internal realization. And I mean the process of struggling to actually go ahead and post this show. You have no idea how many times or how many different life situations in this past month I recorded myself in somewhat of a similar style, trying to express this concept or this show, or to get ahead of myself and actually publish it. And now it feels like there's a point reached where I am more than ready, where it feels like life is even telling me like, hey, you should have been doing this a long time ago. And now I finally feel with my whole body that I'm really ready for this. So let me sit down and say a few things about it. So what I mean to say when I refer to my life has kind of been telling me like you should have been doing this is a great story that happened the other day that I also shared on my Instagram, which is that my camera bag was lost, right? I took a train from Vienna to Berlin, and I was in a great conversation with an enlightened wizard from Iran. And I just left the camera bag on top of like the train rack, you know? And I was like, oh, and I only realized 30 minutes later that it was gone, so the train had left the station and there's no way that I was gonna get it. And then a week of reflection happened, a week of, okay, why is my camera gone? You know, I like to look at the things that happen outside of us from an inside perspective, right? Like, why did I lose my camera? What did it mean that I didn't realize it 30 minutes later? And all of these things. And it's been a week then where I really reflected on it and realized that I want to continue making videos. And that's something that I've honestly struggled with a bit. As you can see, or if you follow me on socials, I haven't been active. And a big reason for that has been that I've kind of lost that drive that I once had, because I want to do new styles, and there's this big part of me that was scared to really fully show myself and express myself how I truly feel about a lot of things, and hiding behind the opinion of others and just reporting rather than actually speaking my mind. And it's been a very interesting journey when it comes to that. So when my camera was lost, I realized, okay, you know, this journey isn't over. I really want this camera back, and I made a promise. Because this show has been on my mind for such a long time and I've kept recording it, I made a promise to the universe, to God, to the creator, the life force, whatever you want to call it. I made a promise to say, if I get this camera back, I post this. Like, there's no way that I'm just gonna let this call simmer and go away. So I hope I'm not too late, honestly, because I've had my camera back now also for a week already. But there's another interesting thing when it comes with that too, because it really felt like life slapping me on the wrist a little bit and being like, hey, we've, like, this call, the voice, like, we told you to do this, and you're not doing it. So when I get my camera back, you know, as a part of a camera bag that you can like swing over, and there were things missing. The camera was inside, my hard drive was inside, it's like the two biggest essential things were inside. However, my tripod, the two separate like add-on batteries I have for the camera, and my microphone were all gone. So 3 objects, of course, they're valuable in material money sense. However, to me, it also seemed more really like a slap of the wrist, like, yeah, you lost things. Okay, the crazy part kind of slipped my mind here, because who takes a tripod, exchange batteries, and a microphone out of a camera bag, but leaves the camera? The most valuable object stayed inside, and just these three things that, yeah, they're cool to have, but I don't necessarily need to create this. That's the slap on the wrist. However, you also found this new passion, this drive to continue this and to actually start creating reflection, like I've been wanting to for so long. And to show yourself in a more vulnerable and authentic way, you only have one battery now instead of three, because, you know, the words count, and you got to make your words and the energy that you spend on things really, really count. You know, tractor driving by in the distance, doing work, and that's exactly what I should do the work. And I think in this internal journey that I was on really for quite a long time, and I'll share it in another clip. However, it's been so remarkable, all this internal change, and how it all just keeps transforming into other things and ideas and projects. And I just realized I'm far from over. Just today, a few minutes ago, I've made another very spontaneous decision in a way that belongs to my heart and my inner calling. So for this past few months, I've had such an interesting, extraordinary journey, and I rarely talk about it on social media because I had this strange disconnection between separating my personal and my brand, I guess, digitally. But doing that has also kind of caused me to really feel frustrated with just my brand itself. So I decided to say, okay, I want to combine the two, and I want to talk more about my personal story and my vulnerabilities, because I think that's also what really is inspiring. I think that, you know, if I question the construction of various ancient sites, that opens a lot of doors, and I've met so many lovely people that actually knew me from my videos, which is such a great experience. And they all said, like, yeah, your videos really opened doors mentally, you know, by just asking these questions that, you know, perhaps humans haven't asked themselves before. And I'm not saying I'm the only one, just for individual cases, you know. And for me, for example, it was Graham Hancock for sure. And I think asking these questions is the door opener. And I also realized that this journey of spirituality, awakening, or just a journey of self-unfoldment is something that is also best shared by the stories of another. At least that's how I feel. I get the most inspiration from things where people really share from their heart about something they went through or something they are going through. And so I want to do the same. I want to keep you more up to date on this journey of mine. And yeah, I've really, this call has followed me, or I followed the call for quite some time now. And the decision I made today comes after 4 or 5 months of running. I mean, really, this year, I've never had a rental contract. No, that's not true. That's not true. This year, the longest period of time that I spent anywhere was 3 months. That's the only period of time where I somewhat had a rental agreement. The other times, I've just been bouncing around living in one backpack, basically. Spent half of the year in Portugal so far, half of the year in Germany, where I'm currently in this beautiful forest in. And now I made the choice to move to Bulgaria in about 9 days. And it's a choice that gives me, for the first time since April, my own room. So since April, I've either stayed in tents, in living rooms of friends, or yeah, just family. And yeah, I mean, a reason of that, of course, is also that, you know, being a spiritual creator, I have a lot of big dreams, and right now it's not financially sustaining, and I'm also on the path to change and transform that, but I also want to be vulnerable about it, because I think it just helps to talk about these subjects too. I think there's such a weird taboo sometimes when it comes to money, and I don't really feel you need that much money. I mean, I lived in a tent for 2 months voluntarily, let me say it like that, voluntarily, in a spiritual community in the heart of Portugal called Spirit Tribes, which is an amazing project with a lot of amazing people, where it's, you know, trying to find ways to just live in more sustainable and loving ways than the current system is providing. And that was honestly such a transformative experience, just to be part of a community, the responsibility you feel towards others, and the love, the unconditional love you get is quite remarkable. So I really recommend anyone to make an experience like it if you have the opportunity to. And yeah, so this year has just been filled for me to jump around, move, travel, and all that change of location has led to a lot of inner change. As above, so below. It really is like that. And yeah, it's a process to really go through this change and to integrate it all. And I feel a lot of people have been on this recently, and I think it's going to continue, that we as a collective, we continue to reflect more. And with this podcast or show, I want to bring that out more, that energy of reflecting ourselves as well as outer subjects. The original title for this actually was introspection. Yet I also felt, I know myself, and I know myself to a degree, right? And what I have experienced and realized, that I like things open. I don't like structure too much. I want to have some freedom in it. And so by calling it introspection, I think it would be more difficult title-wise to then talk about something like ancient history, right? And reflection gives this openness to say, okay, I want to reflect on this subject. And that's what I want to do more in the future too. Whenever there's an episode where I really feel like I want to share something going on in my life, I'll do that. And sometimes if there's a subject, if there's like a subject I want to talk to, or if there are people that I want to talk to and reflect with them, then that's also kind of something that I'd love to do. Just talk to people more and reflect with them together. Because we're all reflectors of one another. I think that's so fascinating too, how you realize your reaction to the actions of another tells you so much about yourself. So much about yourself. We're all just mirrors. We're all just mirrors of our own consciousness, or of one consciousness in itself. At least that's what it feels like to me. And just the experience that you get from observing and actually just, meditating or neutrally reflecting on the thoughts that you have, or the things that you do subconsciously, is super interesting, like out of habit, because it's so quick and easy for us to just do something for the sake of doing it and not really paying full attention with it. And then sometimes there's a little hinge of, oh, why did I do this? And I find watching that so fascinating. To give an example with the mind, for example, and it's also a bit of a vulnerable one, and I just hope that, you may get some inspiration, or if you feel what I say, out of my control anyways. However, I'll just say it, no point of just haspering around. So for some time now, I've been reading Marcus Aurelius and got more into Stoic philosophy. And their whole ideas and concepts, which I really, really love. I highly recommend Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, although I like the German title better, which is Selbstbetrachtung, which is, if you translate that to English, would be a self-observation. However, observation, I feel like with a touch of like an aesthetic, romantic way. That's how I would describe it. I like that a bit better than Meditations, although it comes back to the same thing, which is inner reflection and inner observation. And so for me, a big part of reading that book was also to dissect certain thought patterns and realize what that thought pattern actually does. So ever since starting to play sports as a kid, I've had these dreams, like who doesn't, of, oh, okay, now I'm gonna be a soccer star or a football star for the Europeans, right? Although I played both American and regular football. And it's so interesting to see what that thought does, because on one hand it can drive you to be better, to practice harder, to run faster. On another hand, it can also subconsciously tell you that you've already reached that dream and that you don't need to try as hard to get there. At least that's what it feels like to me sometimes. And so even now when I make content, sometimes there are thoughts where I go 10 steps ahead of being in a fantasy world, of dreaming of some event, being up in the sky like the airplane you maybe hear in the background, as everything is connected. And I realized that this pattern is also creating a very unhealthy way to look at certain projects that are happening, because it takes me out of the moment and so far ahead that I want to grasp myself back into the ground, grab the earth and feel it. And that's what I want to do more. And these reflections on thoughts or actions have been so helpful to make myself a better human, or a more reflective human. Good and bad is a difficult conversation, and we'll get to that in other episodes. Yet for now, it feels best for me to just have an introduction that feels very authentic and real. And I liked, as I said, I've recorded like aspects or certain ways about this show for such a long time, and so I want to play a clip now of me talking about reflection. Reflection has been upon my path. So the show is called Reflection for various reasons. Back when I was 16, I had a vision that I was running my own clothing brand, and it came to me in a dream, but it really felt so real that even back then I wrote everything down that came to my mind and pursued that dream. The choices that I made from 16 to 21 were basically made because I wanted to achieve that vision, which was run a clothing brand with a logo that I have tattooed on my arm already, and also put on this jacket. But we'll get to that. And yeah, Reflection, this is the logo that came to me in the vision when I was 16. Yeah, so this clothing brand with the name Mirror initially, and it switched to Reflection when I met a beautiful friend of mine that I may be living soon with in Bulgaria. Shout out to you, Gabe. And then I was also part of Spirit Tribe, or am part of Spirit Tribes, a community that wants to live in love rather than fear. And I introduced to this whole community the principle of reflection, and it came naturally to be. And so for me, it only makes sense to have a show called after what I've been set out here to do: reflection and reflecting. I want to talk about this journey of following this call and how I really got to this point of just following that inner voice with trust, and just try to just say, okay, whatever that inner voice tells me, and no matter how scared I am of it, I do it, and I see where that leads me to. I had a very profound experience. For the past 3 summers, I've had a very intense eye pain, as if someone would really stab a knife into it, like an imaginary one, and pull it out. And it was like, 10 to 15 seconds usually, and then it just disappeared, and some days were rougher than others. No idea where it came from. I went to eye doctors, they said, there's nothing wrong with your eye. I went to regular doctors, I took eye drops, nothing helped. And my mom said to me, I should talk to my eye in the mirror, really ask it what's up. And I never really did, because I was like, that's kind of strange, I was already a little bit walking on a spiritual lifestyle, so to speak, But that was still a bit too out of the box for me, so I decided not to do it until I meditated and also used Santa Maria, which is a great substance for reflection. Very overused and not the way that it was supposed to be used, in my opinion. And I lived in the Netherlands, so it was also openly available to me, and I made a lot of experiences with it then. However, the relationship I had with the substance changed in Portugal when I did it consciously for the first time, where I smoked it in order to really go within, and I meditated. And I remember this, and it was one of the craziest experiences in my life. And I've smoked weed before, it's not that it really shocked me like that, but it was really bizarre. So I started to meditate, and I heard the shamanic drums, like almost like if there's a horde of animals just galloping, and there's like a drum going on, and then the voice of my mom just kept like almost like echoing, like swirling around my head, saying, talk to your eye, talk to your eye, talk to your eye. And in that moment, I realized it's the third eye that we should talk to, or that I should talk to in that moment. And so I did. I went within, and I spoke to my third eye, and everything went really bright, like colorful. And I was in shock. Honestly, I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. And it led to this very interesting past 1.5 years where my life did a complete 180. And I've learned so much about myself. Yeah, so to be a bit vulnerable here too, I was in a relationship with a lovely woman. If you're seeing this, I have a lot of love for you. So what really happened when the third eye opened was my inner voice kept telling me to do things. Like go to the Azores and look for Atlantis, which I did for 3 months. I lived there, looked for Atlantis, and I would have loved to post more about it. However, the hard drive got deleted. Like it disrupted, and so the footage got deleted. However, that's still a work in progress. I hope to get that footage back. Although it's also been a year now. Anyways, I've switched my life around, and I've started to follow that voice ever since. And the most amazing transformation happened that I never shared publicly. I never talked about these magical, like unreal things happening in my life because I was scared, I think, because I was scared of judgment and the responsibility that comes with it. The videos that I've been doing about ancient history, about mythology, these are subjects I love, subjects I talk about, and yet in the background there is this very much, in my opinion, perhaps even more profound thing unfolding that I never shared. And I think part of that is that I wanted to be like a serious researcher or whatever, maybe, or because I was scared. I mean, you can dissect the reasons, and it's very helpful to do that. But what it comes down to was that I didn't do it. I stuck with my regular videos, and I reached a point where that kind of broke me now. And it's been feeling me like it's really been empty for me to make these videos for some time now. And although I created a new one now, which was a great process to get back into the groove, I also still feel that that's not the style that I really want to do full time anymore, and go more extensive and perhaps more deep, more vulnerable, more real. I think that's what the world needs. I want to speak from my heart, I want to speak freely, and hope that I can inspire some of you with that story. I think there's a calling that calls all of us, that deep inner voice that whispers to us what we should do. My goal in life is to reach my greatest potential, wherever that leads me to. In a way, this idea of embracing uncertainty, which I so love, the words of Socrates, I know that I know not, is something that really sticks and resonates within me. Because I think a lot of the discourses in the world and within are just because of opinions that we've created on ourselves that we describe as certainties rather than actual uncertainties, which they are, because I think there's so much we do not know, and it's always depicted in the news or in ancient history documentaries, right? It's always depicted as we know. We know what's going on. We know the full story. And I find that so difficult. To stick with the example of ancient history, since that's kind of the jam, that's what brought me here on this very wood bench anyways, is the fact that we're always being told in history books the way things were. And it's just one perspective on it. I think the colonial age is a great example for that, right? Where, yeah, if you read a European history book, you may get that story. If you talk to indigenous people in South America or Africa, do they tell you the same story? I mean, and even then, it's all so far in the distance. You know, most people don't really remember what they eat last week. And I think there's something about this European way of, let's say, this forceful idea that your thoughts only matter if they've been written down. This whole idea of like, oh yeah, the Sumerians are the oldest civilization because they have the oldest pieces of writing. Or, okay, you know, these European explorers that wrote journals, their opinion is much more valuable than cultural myths that have been handed down from mouth to mouth over generations. And in a way, I see the point of like, okay, he wrote this down in like 1521 and we have his exact words, beautiful. However, I feel like that's pretty similar as the elders of indigenous tribes continuing to share that story with seriousness and with pride. And we have so many myths all over the world that seem to depict a very different tale of our ancient past. And no matter where you look at, I think one of the greatest examples of that is Nan Madol. Nan Madol, fascinating site in French Polynesia, I believe, where the original story there say, okay, there were two wizard brothers who floated these giant stones into place. And the same story is in Easter Island, right? Where also not two wizard brothers, but just magicians used mana in order to move these stones into place. And another interesting aspect to that, besides, you know, archaeology not recognizing these claims to have any truth in them whatsoever, they just make their own story and then just say, well, rationally explained, these primitive people used copper tools and heavy ropes or whatever to move them into place. But we have no idea. We have no idea. There's no they and we, just collectively, we have no idea. They and us, I guess, yeah. We have no idea. What I meant to say is also that I believe that these cultural memories have been handed down for so long and we see the same patterns everywhere. Why is mana such a thing in video games, right? Why are some of the most popular movies and films those that tell the most ancient tales? I mean, Star Wars, right? The polarity of good and evil and this life force in every being. Harry Potter, you know, this idea that someone is a wizard and has the opportunity to change the way they look at things, and they're muggles. You know, I think in today's culture there's a lot of talk of like NPCs, right? And my great friend Phoenix, who's also part of the Spirit Tribes community, I had a conversation with him about it. He doesn't really like the phrase. However, he said an NPC is a non-present character. And I like that idea more because it goes into this concept of the muggle world. The world where magic isn't real. The closed-minded world, so to speak. I mean, this closed-mindedness was a big reason for me to move out of Germany into the world, become an international citizen. And that has really helped me because it opened up so many, like, just, you know, receptors towards the great things of the world. And in society itself, I think it's pretty common, although it's, you know, we're getting more open-minded as we speak, However, there's still a certain dogma that's trying to press you in that form, you know, press you in that shoebox. And it's such a beautiful transformation to see that come and change more and more. Just how many beautiful humans there are talking about open-minded subjects on TikTok, on social media, on YouTube, and how much more open the world seems to be for new ways of thinking is really, really profound. And I think we're at the beginning of something great. You know, a lot of the times when it comes to these circles of questioning things, of really this conspiracy or whatever you want to call it, there's often this very dark energy attached to it. Like, oh, the New World Order, we're all gonna be crushed. And, well, you know, maybe, who knows? Who knows anything? It's funny that something fell down beneath me while I said that. What? Is that a good omen? Well, anyways, what I mean to say is that there's a lot of positivity, a lot of goodness in the world. A lot of goodness. I mean, talk to most people you meet on the street. They don't want you any harm. They just want you to live your life if you let them live theirs. And there's power in that. Smiling at people is so profound. Did the light switch? Oh no, this is a temperature warning? Oh, it said... Yeah, maybe it's a temperature warning. Well, you know, I've been speaking too much heat. Well, anyways, I just wanted to maybe also keep this a bit shorter then. I'm really grateful for you if you're watching this and if you've been supporting me. It just means the world to me, and I'm so grateful for you being here, for you being present, and for you asking questions and having an open mind. I feel that's what the world needs, and continue to embrace uncertainty. You are on your journey. Do not give up. You're great the way you are, and don't let anyone tell you different. And look at the outer, study the inner. As above, so below. Until next time. And yeah, let's be reflectors for one each other and hold each other to the greatest potential that they can be. Much love.